Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Solaris BlueRaven at the helm this evening. I want to give a shout out to everybody at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners, chat room, and thank everybody for tuning in tonight. You have been listening to my customized bumper music for my show. This music was created by the goth rock band Angels of Liberty out of the UK, and you can check them out on YouTube. They have some great music. And we are 100% listener supported, so if you like what you're hearing, please click on the donate button. We appreciate your support, and thank you for any contribution you can make to this excellent station. And I am no longer accepting any calls, just a reminder, or texting during my shows. This might change from week to week. It just depends on the guest and the time. So just a heads up for everybody out there. Also, you are listening to Studio A. And my special guest this evening is Betsey Lewis. And Betsey Lewis is an author, internationally renowned psychic medium, talk radio host, and Earth Mysteries investigator, inherited the gift of prophecy from her mother. 2 major UFO events transformed her early life. At the age of 8 months, she and her parents had a terrifying UFO encounter on a deserted road in northwestern Idaho. And again, at the age of 7, she was chased by a massive silver disc while walking home from first grade. After the second UFO event, she began to experience spirit connect and paranormal events, which included reoccurring dreams of cataclysmic earth changes taking place worldwide now. A message was given to her, but the contents erased until recently. For the first time, Betsey reveals the urgent message in her first nonfiction book, Angels, Aliens, and Prophecy 2, The Angel Alien Agenda. This book includes the hypnotic regression sessions that Betsey and her mother submitted to by renowned MUFON investigator and author Ann Druffel. For over 40 years, Betsey has investigated UFO sightings, cattle mutilations, aliens, angels, and other earth mysteries. She practices Reiki, Kriya Yoga, astrology, tarot, and numerology, and regressive hypnosis. In the past 10 years, Betsey was mentioned by Native American ceremonial and spiritual leaders on the by Native American ceremonial and spiritual leaders on the natural way of life. She provides psychic readings for an international clientele. And her website is www.betseylewis.com. And you can also find her at www.blogtalkradio.com/rainbowvision. And please welcome Betsey to the show this evening. Betsey, how are you doing?
Oh, great. Great to be on your show tonight, Solaris.
Oh, it's great to have you on. You sound wonderful.
Well, so do you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm excited to have you on. There's so much to discuss, and let's always get started. I'm always all cranked up here. So let's talk about your background insofar as you grew up around a paranormal environment, or it sounds like you had a lot of paranormal activity. And can you elaborate a little bit on that and also the UFO experiences you had as a child?
Oh, my goodness. I've had so many paranormal experiences. And I've just written a new book about that, which is communicating with the other side. But it started when you mentioned it, when I was 8 months old, and I was in a basket in my parents' back seat of their car, and they decided to take a trip from northern Idaho, up in the Panhandle, to visit my grandparents in southern Idaho, and it's about a trip of 8 hours, and they were driving late at night. They hadn't seen a car for miles. They were in an area called New Meadows. And suddenly this horrendous sound came just out of nowhere and started shaking the car. And of course, their only thought was a plane was going to crash on them. And my father pulled over, my parents jumped out, they looked around, there was nothing there, nothing in the sky, the sound had stopped like somebody had turned off a faucet, nothing around. So that was the story I'd always heard until my uncle in, I think it was like 1980, he said to me, "Did they tell you the story of their UFO encounter?" And I said, "Well, they told me about the sound." He said, "Yeah, but did they tell you that they couldn't account for 2 hours? They lost 2 hours in time." He said, "Your grandparents and all of us thought that they were in a car accident." And wow. I said, "That's amazing." So that's when I contacted Ann Druffel to do a regressive session with us to see what we could uncover. And both my mother and I were regressed separately. We both told pretty much the same story. I went a little bit further, but, you know, I have to, sometimes I don't really know if such an event happened because I've read so many things about UFOs and other abductions, alien abductions. So, but I feel that something did happen because of all the strange things that have happened in my life. and they continue to happen. I can't even begin to tell you all the strange things that have been happening. Even lately, I feel that my sister's been around, and I've had just some amazing things happen. She's been here to, I think her mission was to have me write this book and to just validate her presence, that, you know, everyone exists on the other side. Even though they've died, they're still there. They still watch over us. They still love us. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And what year did she transfer out?
2003 in Argentina. And it was very strange. She passed away. I didn't get to see her. She decided to move there with her husband. But she still has a great sense of humor, I've got to say. Spirit hasn't lost that at all. She delights in turning off our radio. She's done that lately. She has turned off our TV, our internet. She's turned off my husband's computer. She has made a little scrub brush that's on our sink fly off into the sink about 3 times. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And you're sure it's her?
Yeah. Well, you know, the funny thing is that I used to sing the song Kathy's Clown Tour from the 60s, right? And her name is Kathy. So the next time it happened, that song was playing. So it was like confirmation. And then the music was turned off. So I knew that was her. She was telling me, you know, I'm here. You know?
Wow, that's really incredible.
Yeah, it is.
That's really amazing. And what is the name of your new book now? You said you have the recent one, right? Not the one I mentioned. Yeah, the one that just came out is Commuting with the Other Side, like Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium. So, yeah. Excellent. And that's on Amazon.com? It is. Excellent. Yeah, that sounds like a real good one for sure. And so what is your perception? I mean, obviously they do live on another dimension, perhaps even parallel to ours. But what is your take on those who transfer out? Do you feel like they're in some kind of a bardo, or do you think they actually do get to ascend to a higher level of consciousness? Do you feel like they're stuck in any way or shape or form? I think it all depends. I think that world over there is anything we want it to be. It's all thought form. We create the world. In fact, we create the world that we're in right now. But on the other side, we're also creating things almost instantly. So wherever you want to be, whatever you want to create. Do you remember the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams? Well, exactly. That's exactly what we're doing when we pass over. We're creating our world over there. So if you want to create a hell and you believe that you have to have some atonement, you know, for the things that you've done, then you'll create your hell. If you believe in heaven, then you're going to create a heaven. Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. It's almost like to what degree you've done your spiritual work as to where you're going to wind up, and also based on your belief systems. And you're right. We do manifest at will as we go on this planet, which is very concerning when you take a good look and see some of the dark tides we've been riding out lately. Oh, my goodness, yes. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, but being a visionary and also very prophetic, maybe you can give us some insight insofar as what you see. Well, what I'm seeing right now is more major earth changes, and I think a lot of it is natural, but I think a lot of it is man-made. And I feel like the chemtrails that we've had since the 90s, and I've been watching those forever, taking photographs of them, I know that they aren't natural clouds. I've seen too many of them, the patterns that are made up there, the X's in the sky, just strange things, and how those clouds fan out. You know, it'll be a perfectly blue morning sky, and by late afternoon, the sky is covered in these kind of grayish-white, awful-looking clouds that just spread across the whole sky. So there's something going on there. And if it's weather modification, like a lot of people believe, then, you know, maybe that's to blame too. But, you know, there's all these strange things going on right now with the world. People are hearing these booms worldwide. Right. They're feeling shaking without any earthquakes. And we're having some really strange earthquakes. There was a 4.1 yesterday in South Carolina, which is really strange. And they've heard those booms there just before the earthquake, which is really interesting. We've had the sinkholes forming all over.
swallowing up cars and people and houses lately. We've had animals, sea creatures washing up on the shores around the world. Just really strange things. The meteors, and I think, there's a lot of theories that our Earth is shifting. Either the magnetic poles are already shifting, and the magnetic poles are going to shift and flip. So I think something is getting ready to happen, and I think a lot of people are feeling that now.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, I totally agree. And also, depending on where people are once again, on their spiritual path, and my take is there's just a lot of disjointed energy floating about to a point where it's almost chaotic. And those of us who have done the spiritual work are able to anchor a lot of light and be centered and be the sacred witness to what's happening around us. But at the same time, it's almost like insanity. I look around and I think to myself, I'm on the wrong planet. I don't know about you, but I'm like, I just don't belong here. I get that.
I know.
Really clear. But what's interesting to me, you talk about the earthquakes, and also you said there was a booms, like the booms that were investigated a few years ago that sounded like horns?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
They're hearing that. They've heard it in Colorado lately, in Minnesota. I don't know what part of Colorado. I know you're there.
Yeah, I'm up in the Rocky Mountains. Yeah.
Right. Hi. Illinois, Canada, Vermont, Missouri, Oklahoma, and of course Oklahoma's had all these small quakes lately, which may be from the fracking. I don't know, but there's that. But yeah, it's just been going on. Even Arizona, California's heard these weird noises, these booms, and then the shaking. And of course, the USGS says, they didn't record any real earthquake. So something's happening to our Earth now.
Absolutely. Well, they do talk about the magnetic field collapsing also. Yes, I'm sure you're familiar with that. And I think that has a lot to do with what's happening here. And also the cold temperatures.
Oh, yeah.
That's outrageous. I mean, it's not global warming, let's put it that way. So, yeah, I like the way you're tracking everything, and especially the earthquakes. But I do think some of those are from the fracking.
I think so, too.
Yeah, it's just bizarro. I mean, it just gets weirder by the moment. So I guess we just have to hold on for the ride, huh?
We do. And, right now, I believe in ceremony and being around Native Americans. I think that's something we all have to get back to. We have to learn how to honor the earth again. And Mother Earth is, I think she's kind of had it with us.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. I totally agree.
Fukushima and nuclear plants, and what's going on there, and what happened to the Gulf with BP oil spill. And we've just misused her. And we've got to go back to the native way of life. We've got to go back to ceremony. We've got to honor the animals again. We're just misusing her so much.
I so agree with that 100%. It's interesting because when you look at us, we are star beings. I mean, this is what we are, and our essence of origin, of course, are the star beings in the universe. So it makes perfect sense why the Native Americans are still in tune with that energy, and they still have the resonance wave, opposed to regular people who are just detached from that, the source energy, what I call source. So it's very interesting, but I totally resonate with what you're saying. I think that is critical that people get back to their spiritual roots and start tuning into the earth energies and start healing this world, and also the animals, because I'm a big animal advocate, So I hate to see them, hurt or suffering on this world. But what I have noticed in observation is a real aggressive side to mankind lately. It's a very animalistic side. It's a very detached, heart chakra side, and to me that seems like a very dangerous, mixture.
It is.
Insofar as what's happening. Right. I don't know what your impression is of that. I mean, have you noticed a kind of a de-evolving of society?
Oh, I do, absolutely. And, what we see on TV, I think it's programming. I think it's mind control.
I agree.
And that's what's happening to the youth.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Which, I feel very sorry for. I feel sorry for the youth that they're not seeing the world that I saw when I was growing up. There was still pristine areas, the lakes that were still pure, the mountains, and now the trees, where I live, and you probably have it too, the beetle infestation up there. It's just horrible.
Yep.
And so many of these trees are dying now because they say of global warming. But,
Oh, no, it's not. It's beetle kill for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a horrible drought too. I mean, even though we had the major flood last year, I mean, we have, it's really dry. I mean, the trees are dying. Our forests are dying here. And I've said that. I mean, I've known these mountains for a long time. And, I used to come up here and you could smell the pine. You can't do that anymore. You can't smell it.
No.
So it's really.
And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I hate to say it, but I really do. I feel that this is going to happen. I dreamed about it as a child, about these earth changes, and I've always known that I would be in these times and see this. And here we are. We've arrived.
Wow, that's really amazing. And you started to have more vision after your experience with the UFO encounter?
Right. My second one was, I was 7 years old. I was walking home from school. It was a cloudy day, and I felt something watching me. You kind of know when something's watching you. And I looked up in the sky, and here was this huge silver disc, and it would increase and decrease in size and seem to follow me. And I was so frightened. I had no idea what it was. And I would hide in some bushes. And the next thing I remember is going in a totally different direction than I usually walked home. I ended up at a house and knocking frantically on this door. And no one answered. The door was unlocked, so I went in and hid under a bed. Now, that's my memory. Maybe it was a screen memory, I don't know.
Wow.
But my mother said it took me, about an hour to get home. She was frantic when I got there. And we went outside. I told her about my experience, and she was very understanding. She believed in UFOs and aliens, and we had talked about this. She was very spiritual. And we went outside, we looked around, there was nothing in the sky, and nothing was reported in the news, which is kind of interesting. But I found a neighbor, that was walking in the area, and she said that all the children were frightened, that they had seen the same thing the same time I did. So, I guess I wasn't crazy.
No, not at all. Yeah, I've heard of that too, where there are group collectives. And you also had missing time with that one as well, you say?
I did. About an hour. It usually took me about 10, 15 minutes to walk home. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there was missing time. I've had missing time throughout my life. I don't
really?
know where I've been.
There's something to be said about that. Now, I don't know if it's part of the someone, you vibrate at a very high frequency, I can tell. So I'm wondering if it's just that you're vibrating at such a high frequency that you're already in other spaces of consciousness where time isn't regulated. And that's just my own impression. I mean, I could be wrong, but it almost feels that way to me. And I'm wondering if that's where the illusion of missing time comes in, that when you get to a higher level of consciousness and vibratory rate, time disappears as we know it. And then we have that, what we call missing time. But also the UFOs could be creating that frequency also, which could be altering the illusion of time,
Good thought.
It's really interesting. Well, it really spins my wheels actually, and I think more and more of it. But I think there's a lot of truth to your experiences, without a doubt. And you're a very knowledgeable woman. I really am appreciative of you being on tonight, without a doubt. And what projects are you working on right now?
I'm working on a book, Earth Energy, which how we can honor the earth again, and the things that I've learned through Native Americans and just my own experiences, my love of nature and what nature has taught me to watch and understand everything, that we're warned. There's always warnings before earthquakes. If we just listen, if we just take the time to trust our intuition. And we've forgotten that, in our daily life, we forget that we do have what is called a sixth sense, and we all have it. If we just learn to, trust it, you get that gut feeling, you just know something's going to happen. And I've had that many times. It's saved my life. And I'm sure Spirit has guided me. It's warned me of major events. It's warned me of personal things that have happened in my life so many times, and even saved my life, I'll tell you.
Oh, wow.
So they're so patient with me. I don't know. I should have died so many times. I can tell you some of those stories. They're just...
Yeah, really. Please elaborate.
Well, the first time, I think I was about 8 years old, and there had been a big snowstorm in southern Idaho, and the road that we lived on right next to had been plowed, and there was a great big snowbank there. So I thought I'd go out and make a snow cave, right? So I started digging, and I got really deep in there, and I crawled in. And I didn't tell my mom where I was going or what I was doing. And I crawled in. The whole thing caved in on me, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. And suddenly I felt someone pick me up and pull me out. And I looked around. There was no one there. Somehow I escaped. I should have died that day.
Wow.
But it was incredible, yeah. So somebody wanted to keep me around for a while.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. I'm a firm believer in that, too. We have guardians, whatever you want to call them, guardian angels, whatever they are, but they're there, and they warn us, without a doubt. And what do the Native Americans say about what's happening here on the Earth? I mean, what is their take?
Well, the Hopi believe that we are during the time of, a shift of things changing. And we're right in that time. I believe, too, that we have two roads, the Hopi believe, and they have a prophecy rock, which shows that humans can take one road, which will be, our salvation, or the road where it's destruction. So we do have the choice, and I think we do create our reality. I don't know if all major events can be changed, but I believe in time shifts, and I believe that time, when you have that feeling of deja vu, you've probably had that feeling, right, where you feel something's happened before. I think we actually jump in the future, and there's so many stories of people that have actually jumped into the past, too. They'll be walking somewhere, and all of a sudden they're transported back into the 1800s, and they see people, and they're there for just a few minutes, and then they're right back where they're, back in the present time. So, yeah, I believe that they're happening all the time, and I think there are parallel worlds that reside next to our world, and sometimes those parallel worlds kind of shift into our world.
I agree.
Like the TV series Fringe. I don't know if you ever watched that.
No, I haven't. I don't watch television, but yeah, I've heard of that show.
Good for you.
I don't even own a TV.
Good for you.
Yeah, just my computer is my window to the world. But yeah, I mean, I used to watch television, but I don't watch it. Yeah, but I never got into it anyway. But yeah, it's really interesting. But they usually take all of those shows, and they're usually spin-offs of truth anyway, as we know, with mysticism and science. So yeah, but that makes perfect sense to me, the timelines. And also, it sounds like we are the time travelers, I guess. We are multidimensional beings. So that would make sense that we could pierce that veil. But what do you see insofar as being able to change what's happening here to a positive from a negative?
Well, I believe, like Dr. Jose Arguelles, who created the harmonic convergence in 1987. This is before the internet, where he brought millions of people around the world together to pray, meditate that whole weekend. And shortly after that event, the Great Wall came down. So
yep, I agree.
Yeah,
I met him one time, when he was channeling Uncle Joe. And he wrote in the book to me, he said, "Keep your eye on the crest of the wave." I'll never forget that. And I think he was right.
He's amazing. Yeah, I had an opportunity to interview him when he was in Australia just before he passed away. I guess he passed away just about 2 or 3 years ago. But he was just amazing. And he talked about a rainbow bridge, that we all have to come together to create a different world. And I believe that creates a prime event. Anytime people come together, any kind of event like 9/11 is a prime event. That's a negative prime event. But when we come together to pray, and that's, we create another prime event, and we change the outcome of the future. So, but the thing is, right now, we're just, like you said, we're just not on the same wavelength. We're so, scattered and just not together. We just don't want to work together. There are many people like you that are doing shows like this that are just amazing, bringing people together with the same thought. But we have to just create things again. We have to pray together. We have to do ceremony. And I think that will change the world.
I agree with you on that 100%. Yeah, it's like they're running interference with the man-made technology, and that's my take, because I do have a lot of experience with covert assessment technology, and I know they're deploying things with transmissions that are scrambling energy, scrambling transmissions, confusing people, making them erratic, making them angry, affecting them on the lower survival level opposed to higher consciousness. And once they get you in those lower centers, and we all know, then they start dragging you down, you know. But you are so right. I'd love to hear you talk about ceremony, because that is one of my huge things. I'm really big on ceremony. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the idea of getting everybody together across the globe to do sacred ceremony. I think that's incredibly wonderful, and I wish we could do that. I don't even wish it. I mean, I trust that we can, because we really do need to start doing that again, actually.
We do.
So maybe you can start facilitating some of these things.
Well, I've tried with Fukushima. I know other people are doing meditation and intent and manifestation for Fukushima, and I think, you know, we can all get together, you know, all of us can do it.
Yeah, let me know, because if you want to, you know, do something where we can actually get the listeners and everyone to focus on a specific day, we'll just do it and run that energy for it, because I'm a firm believer in running energy to shift for a better world opposed to what's happening here. This is not acceptable, and if we don't do something, it's just there's no future for us or anybody.
Right.
You know?
And that's what I call the dark family wants. You know, they are there. They exist out there, and they are trying to destroy us and everything in our world. You know, I don't know what their whole plan is, but, you know, it seems like it's pretty dark. And what we're seeing now is creating a world of chaos. It really is.
I totally agree. And when you call them the dark family, can you elaborate and so forth? What are they exactly?
I call them the Illuminati. They've been around for ages. They know occult secrets. They practice it. They're into dark occult practices.
Right. Versus light, yeah.
Right. I don't know why they call themselves Illuminati. They believe they're so much more superior than we are. And to many people, they are here to create chaos. They're here to control us, which they've been doing for so long. They have us hoodwinked, I mean, constantly with all the things that are going on in the world, like 9/11. I mean, that was a total lie.
Right.
But what happened, Flight 800, we've been lied to so many times about aliens, UFOs. What's going on there? You know, it's so hard to believe anything they say anymore.
Oh, yeah. It's the game of deception. The one thing that we can predict from them is that they're liars and they'll never tell the truth. And by the time they do, it's too late.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's just, it kind of makes me, well, it infuriates me on some level, but, you know, at the same time, to me, being into mysticism like I am, and I know you are also, we understand how you work with consciousness and how you work with higher alchemy. And they really don't get that component. And I don't even know if they have souls, to be honest, because if they had real souls, I don't think they'd be doing half of what they're doing. But to me, it seems like they're trying to control and manipulate consciousness, because that's where the key to our evolution lies in our future. And what's your impression of that?
You know, there's a lot of theories about why we're here on this planet of duality, dark, light, you know, hot, cold, everything is opposites. And for us to evolve, there has to be the dark side, right? Or we wouldn't evolve. There are planets where everything is beautiful and wonderful and what we'd call heaven. But here we are to learn lessons of love, compassion, and forgiveness. We're here to learn all those lessons. And if we don't learn those lessons, we have to keep coming back until we get it right.
Well, it seems like those of us who are awakened already know the lessons. I think it's the other ones that are creating the chaos. Unfortunately, I don't know if they're ever going to break orbit with their cycle. You know, I think it takes love. It takes higher consciousness.
Well, I think with everyone that's awakening now, you know, it's going to be the 100th monkey theory, you know, where everybody awakens suddenly. And, you know, I get it, you know, we're awake now. We're going to change the world, and it will. It'll change.
I agree. Yeah, I do. When they talk about the blue star Kachina now, what is your impression of the blue star Kachina?
Well, I believe that Planet X is out there, and I think that might be Planet X. I don't know. What is your take on it?
Well, I have a completely different perception of the blue star Kachina, and I have to tell you, I see it as this planet ascending into a star. Now, that's my take. I think this planet is the blue star Kachina, and I know that people say, well, there's a twin of the Earth. I feel like this planet is on a multiversal level, a very high-frequency design that can actually phase shift into this blue star Kachina, and we do that through consciousness and also all of us activating on a higher level, once again, as we were discussing. So that's my impression. That's my take on it, for what it's worth.
There could be a lot of different things. There are theories that there is going to be a supernova that's going to explode, and that will be the blue Kachina. It could be many, many things. There could be some kind of cosmic thing that's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I was curious insofar as what the elders are saying, insofar as what that represents to them. But to me, it seems that way. And I've heard of the story of the twin, like I said before. So I think everything is going according to the master plan of the universe. And maybe we're just riding out some bad tides. But it also sounds to me like they're dropping density on this planet, which means the chaos is going to start coming out. It has to go somewhere. So all this craziness is going to have to filter through.
Right.
And I was going to ask what you felt about that and what your impression is of that.
Well, you're right about everything is frequency, everything is vibration, everything is, and everything has a consciousness too.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that they're trying to lower the frequency, and many of us like you and the people listening tonight, I know, are trying to raise the vibration, which we can. So, but we have to watch what's going on, like food. Certain foods lower our vibrations. When you think about the meat and how it's slaughtered and the fear factor, that fear hormone is what we're eating, unless the animals are, allowed to graze, in pastures and treated well. Here in Idaho, we've had some horrible things happen with animals, and I don't know in your area if you've had that, but it just saddens me so much to see what's going on.
Oh, me too. Yeah, it's just I don't think any living creature should be treated that way, quite honestly. And I'm just appalled by it because their consciousness, we all know, they're intelligent beings, and there's no respect. Once again, I look at mankind and I'm like, they have no respect, not only for their fellow man, but look at the way they treat the animals. That's a real red flag when you watch the pattern of people in societies and how they treat animals and other life forms to me.
Well, that's why we need to go back to the natural or native way of life, where you honor everything before you kill it. You thank it for giving its life so that you can live.
Right.
I love that part about Native Americans. And I love the way that they honor everything, the four directions, and everything has a spirit to it. And I learned that through Corbin Harney, who was the spiritual leader of the Western Shoshone Nation. I met him several years ago, and he was talking about, the water is going to die. He had a dream, a vision, that water one day would look like water, but it would not be water anymore. And look what's happening to our water. He was so right.
Oh, absolutely. And what's really sad, Betsy, is it seems to me that it's deliberate. It seems to me like they're deliberately trying to sabotage this world. And you can look at Fukushima and you can see all the deception here and there. And I'm telling you, it's unbelievable, the disrespect that's been shown to this world. A world that was, we've been given everything on this planet to survive. And look what they've done in the name of money, in the name of greed. I can go on and on. Believe me, I just, it's just really pathetic. And, I'm really glad that you're connected in with the Native American energies. And also, do you do ceremony with Native Americans?
I was involved in that for 10 years during the 90s. I went to powwows all the time throughout the West and into Canada. I met a lot of wonderful Native Americans, different tribes. In Calgary, I was there, and northern Idaho, in Nevada, in California. I even met a shaman in Belize, Central America. So I've been around a lot of just wonderful people, Native Americans, and they've taught me so much. Ed McGaw, or Eagle Man, he's called. He did ceremony for us here in Central Idaho, and he showed us how to create a sweat lodge, and he did the ceremony. It was beautiful. We had about 30 people, and you can just feel the spirits coming in. You know, you have the hot lava rocks and it's getting hot in the air, but you can just feel the spirits come in. It's just an amazing experience. And if people get a chance to go, please go. It's just a, you know, very spiritual experience.
I'm a firm believer in that also. Right. I've been to a few ceremonies also, and yeah, you're right. Yeah, and I did feel a lot of big-time energy coming through. Amazing energy. Yeah, it was just, they were drumming, and you know, the spirits were everywhere. Yeah, it's wild. But you know, if you ask, they come with respect. I mean, of course, it has to do with attitude and consciousness. But yeah, it's amazing. And with that being said, also, I know you've been on the front lines of all this investigative research for how many, 40 plus years? I don't know. How many years have you been doing this?
I have.
My goodness. I mean, I applaud you for that, because you must have been like right there in the very beginning before there were real investigators looking at this stuff, like with the cattle mutilations and everything.
I was. Yeah. It was back in the 70s when it was happening in Idaho, and I was working at a television station when the first call came in about a cattle mutilation.
Wow. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I didn't go out there, but one of the reporters went out there and said that it was bloodless. There was no blood around the animal at all, and the rancher's dog wouldn't even go near it. He said it was just so weird, and certain parts are cored out, and he said an animal couldn't do that. It looked like with laser precision that, you know, certain parts are taken, tongue, rectum, just strange things. And of course, there's no blood. But I started working with a researcher that was doing a lot of the cattle mutilation investigation in Paris, Texas. And there was just tons of cattle that were being mutilated throughout that area. And he said the strange thing is that they were picked up. They could tell that they must have been airlifted somewhere and then dropped from the air because they had broken bones. And that would explain why no blood, no tracks around the animal. Wow. So his theory was that it was military, because there's a lot of military bases close by. A lot of helicopters were seen throughout the area. And he said some of them were even marked so that they could find them at night with infrared.
Wow.
Yeah, so, but I think there might be some UFOs involved in it too. I know Linda Moulton Howe, who's been doing research on it, believes it's aliens, but I think it's both. I really do. So
you think, because I was getting the impression that it was probably going to be something with military, so you think it's a mix?
I do. I think there have been some aliens involved. There's some stories from out of Brazil where they watched this cow, this little calf, where it was just gliding up above the ground, and suddenly it was just airlifted and just vanished. It was screaming, it was bawling, and It just vanished. I mean, there was no helicopter, there was no nothing there, so there has to be something involved in it. And I just don't understand why aliens would want to, mutilate cattle all this time, unless they're trying to find out what's going on with our world, and what's, I don't know, something in our air now. I don't know, and I kind of wonder about the mad cow thing that suddenly came into the news about 20 years ago, and 20, 30 years ago, and that's when the cattle mutilation started. So.
It's highly suspicious.
I wonder.
Yeah, it really does.
Experiments are going on there.
Right, and that was a long time ago. It just reeks to me of black ops for some reason. It just, without a doubt. I mean, that's their behavioral pattern. I mean, I can't fathom extraterrestrials doing that sort of thing, but to me it sounds like something they would do in our covert intelligence departments. And also, we all know that the underground black programs are 100 years plus. Well, they're up there insofar as what we know and what their divisions know and what they were working on is more advanced than what we would have seen back then too. So it's really amazing to me. There's so much of that going on, but I applaud you for doing the research you've been doing. I mean, you've been right there doing all this investigative research, so I really want to thank you for being out there. And what attracted you to all this?
I've always been interested in it, and I think my mother had a lot to do with my beliefs. Of course, she believed in UFOs and aliens, and we talked about the Bible, Ezekiel, and what sounds like aliens talking to the prophet Ezekiel in the Bible. It certainly describes something out of the ordinary. It wasn't angels, because it describes them with having burnished feet, and it describes what sounds like some kind of mask, an oxygen mask, something that even our astronauts would have worn. So yeah, she believed in that. She remembered past lives. She could astral project. We used to do telepathic experiments and try telekinesis. And I remember in grade school trying to levitate pencils. I was, kids thought I was a little weird.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were one of those advanced children.
Well, I just, I always felt that this wasn't home. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you feel that way too?
Yeah, I do, and I think there are a lot of people out there listening that probably feel the same way. I mean, I know we're star beings. I mean, our essence of origin is in the universe, and I don't feel like we're on the right planet at all. And I think that we've been lied to since the beginning of our birth, which tells me that chances are we aren't from here, and we really we've been calibrated to live on the earth, but I don't believe we belong here at all. Not at all.
I don't think so either. I think the world has been seeded, and I think that humans have been on this planet for at least 1 million years, and I think they're just finding that out now with some of the skulls and things that they're finding. They're dating them back to at least 500,000 years.
Right.
So I think soon it's going to be, at least 1 million years that we've been on this planet, and there's been great civilization like Atlantis and Mu and
exactly.
And, we've just been lied about. The giants. There's so many stories of giants. Why did they want to lie to us that they didn't exist? They are. They have found bones. There's just evidence of massive giants, and perhaps that's how some of these structures were built. If there was 10-foot giants roaming the earth at one time, they could certainly move. These huge monolithic structures that we have all over the world.
Well, another thing comes to mind, too. If they were that large, and we know we had giants here at one time, which means our atmosphere was different. Like if we lived on Mars, we'd be taller also. So obviously the environment, this planet was terraformed to some degree, or something happened where it really changed the entire atmosphere. So that, nowadays, of course, people aren't very tall. I mean, not compared to what they used to be.
Right.
So, yeah. So it really kind of cues me in a sense that it'd be nice to take a little time traveling machine and go back and look and see, what the atmosphere was like, then. And it's really very fascinating when you think about it. I love history, and I don't like the fact that they've taken that away from us, our celestial heritage, what I like to call our celestial heritage. They've censored all that data, and it wasn't theirs to do.
Right.
So that's
and to think that we've been told that we evolved from apes. That's just ridiculous.
Maybe they have. But yeah, I know. It's like that. I never bought into that ever.
No, I didn't either. And, and they show, you've probably seen these pictures of, apes and then man, slowly coming up the evolutionary line, right?
Right.
Well, if there was giants, it would make more sense that, there was huge dinosaurs and everything got smaller, right? Well, that's what's happened to us. It's kind of...
Exactly.
They show us totally something different, but...
It's really interesting. What else concerns me is also the obsession with the transhumanism agenda, and the obsession with, making machines out of... why would you want to replicate a beautiful, say, a bee or something, and make it into a little, drone-type robotic device? I see this all the time, and it seems to me like they want to be God so bad, but they're doing such a poor job. Their technology is not with wisdom, therefore it means absolutely nothing.
Right.
But
when you think about Edgar Cayce and what he said that most of the people that are here now lived on Atlantis. And what Atlantis was doing? They were cloning, they were doing genetic things, DNA things. They created some monstrosities, half human, half animal. And look what we're doing today. We're doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's a parallel.
Yeah.
It's really eerie on some levels. And also there was a technological war, which is exactly what's happening again. It's like the same characters have incarnated to recreate the same scenery. It's really weird. But I know there are a lot of us here holding the light, though, and running the higher energies, so that part's good. And I was going to ask you a little bit about, I saw that you were mentioning something about night walkers.
Oh yeah, right, right. Yeah, I was shocked when I read that. Those are strange looking beings, aren't they?
I was like, is that for real? I mean, so what's the
Yeah.
story? I mean, according to the Native American, is that a Native American legend?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. They've seen them. And of course, somehow this night camera captured this stick beam that supposedly walks through the forest. It's kind of a elemental or something like that. They're
Mhm.
superior beings and they're not here to harm us, but they're very strange looking.
Oh yeah, I thought that was really wild. And how long have they been around?
I guess for a long time because there's Native American legends that go way back. So yeah, they've known about them.
Well, that's really, really interesting. Well, I've heard about the night marchers over on the Hawaiian Islands.
Oh, what are
Yeah,
those?
well, they're like the warrior spirits from, if you go over to like Maui on the island, you'll be able to see them over there, and you'll
Okay.
feel them for sure. But they're more like a fierce warrior spirit that shows up, if you're walking around at night. And a lot of people are scared of them. I was never afraid of them. I've encountered a few actually, and
Yeah,
the energetic was incredibly powerful but very protective. I never felt like they were going to hurt me at all. So, but that's what comes to mind when you were mentioning those. But have you ever encountered the skinwalkers?
no, I don't think I want to
No,
either.
that's what everybody says. Every time I ask anybody, they're like, no.
No, I haven't. No,
It's
no.
probably good because I hear that if you do, it's probably not a very positive thing. So, yeah, I was just curious about that. But there's a lot of superstition when it comes down to the old Native Americans. And I understand that because there was so much ceremony involved. And I know you've been doing some interesting research with the Mojave Desert. And I was curious insofar as what's happening over there.
Oh my goodness, there is some amazing legends by the Paiutes that claim that there was just a huge race that existed there when there was a huge lake that was there a long, long time ago. They were advanced. They knew they had flying craft. They could go in the ocean, the water. They could fly. They were so advanced. They were amazing, and they were tall. They were giants too.
Hmm.
And that's part of the legend. But there are stories of miners in the 1800s that stumbled on these caves. There's caves, there's caverns throughout the Mojave Desert and the Panamints, which is Death Valley area.
Hmm.
And they're just throughout, California. So supposedly they stumbled on these uh, remains of giants and modern technology, weapons. They even described what sound like microwaves.
Wow.
So I don't know if that's true. And there was one miner that supposedly stumbled onto gold, and he built this incredible castle in Death Valley. It still stands there. But he would go out in the desert, come back with money, and keep building his castle.
Hmm.
And no one knows where he got the gold.
Wow. That's
Took
very
that with
interesting.
him. So it's kind of interesting that the military has so many bases out there. Area 51, there's just, throughout the Mojave, you can find China Lake. There's just tons of things going on. And I think they've had access to these caverns and they've probably discovered all these things.
So you think they've actually taken archives of data or some kind of artifacts?
Oh, I believe so, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. And insofar as the caves go, are they sealed?
Well, there's still caves that you can get into.
Hmm.
In fact, I interviewed Ron Felber, who wrote a book called Searchers several years ago. It was in the 90s that it came out, but he investigated this UFO alien abduction with a couple from Southern California that went out to the Mojave Desert. They were going to go hunting, the husband was anyway, and they encountered one of the strangest alien abductions I've ever heard of. They were so frightened. They were out there in the middle of nowhere. They couldn't find a camping place because it was really crowded the first place they went to. So they ended up going further into this valley. And late at night, they saw this huge UFO come over. But then they start seeing these things coming down, these orb-type things just falling from the sky, hundreds of them. And they thought they were being invaded by something.
Oh, Betsy, we're heading for a break real quick, but let's continue this conversation when we get back. We'll be right back, everybody.